Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Catholic ReCon Testimonies from Reverts and Converts. I'm your host, Eddie Trask. Please subscribe. Please share this channel, and please, as usual, recommend others to the channel that may have a very interesting story, Catholic Christian testimony. I would greatly appreciate it. This week's guest is Chris Mennell, who I believe, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, didn't my wife somehow find you on social media or something?
Yeah, actually, if I remember correctly, it was the Catholic Converts group on Facebook, which I had recently joined, having come to the faith very recently. Just got my confirmation this past Easter Vigil.
That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so she noticed something that I had said there and reached out to me, and then got us to connect, and I'm very thankful for that because it's really just an honor to be here.
That's awesome, Chris. So why don't we begin in childhood? Let me know
Sure.
how you were raised.
Yeah. I certainly I don't want to denounce or diminish my parents in any way. I am the youngest of eight. So I was sort of at the tail end of a lot of stuff. And one of those being faith, unfortunately. I was baptized as a baby, but when I grew up, we didn't go to church. There was talk of God in the household. I knew that my mom was Catholic. Honestly, I don't really know what my dad was at the time. He would become a Catholic himself many years later, but growing up, we didn't go to church ever. Also, it was like there was like a wedding or something. That was the only time that I'd ever set foot inside a church. So faith was really just sort of a sort of on my own sort of thing. I had to kind of figure out. Interestingly, for me anyway, was I felt like somehow I just kind of knew, maybe because of my mom being Catholic, I knew that I was at least Christian. It was very easy for me to accept that Jesus was the Son of God on earth and had performed miracles and done all this stuff. But I didn't see myself as being part of the Catholic Church, especially as I was growing up, through my teenage years and into my 20s and even into my 30s. I was just a personal connection between myself and God. I felt like I didn't need the hierarchy of the church, the authority of a priest to separate me from God, and I could speak directly with God. And so, of course, I had this very sort of prideful way of looking at things, where I was sort of like the center of my own universe with God, and had a direct line to Him and could communicate with God. And then my dad, unfortunately, he passed away in 2016, and that dealing with his dementia prior to that and his passing sort of led me down a very dark path, deep depression, suicidal thoughts, things like that. And it was very dark for quite a long time, for years. And I ended up becoming an atheist. Just gave up on all my faith
Let me ask you
and all my
this.
beliefs.
Let me ask
Yeah,
you this. Before he passed away, would you say you were devout?
to my own personal faith.
Yeah, in a sense. Yeah, the way that
Yeah,
you frame that, were you devout to that? Yeah.
yeah, definitely. I had my own structure. I used to joke that my wife and I would have gotten married in my church. I just hadn't built it yet. So it was I was very and the thing is, I married. My wife is Catholic. We got married in a Catholic church, but I was never Catholic. I was against it. For a long time. So but I said I would help, raise the kids however because it didn't matter to me at that. I was so disconnected from what faith really meant. I didn't really understand how deep faith could be. I was just getting by basically.
Got it. So then your father passes, you you say you become an atheist. Is that related to being so angry with God. I know this is weird. It sounds so weird.
No, no, it's okay.
I've heard it before. Someone saying they got so angry with God, then they did not believe in his existence. I don't know that it ever came out verbatim like that, but it was in
Sure.
that realm. What led to you saying, you know what, there's no God?
Well, actually, it's sort of uh, unto itself. It was a revelation of a kind where I was battling depression. It was really dark, very, very awful. Just everything was, I had no worth, I had no value, I had no reason to live. Life had no purpose. But when I embraced atheism, despite how lacking everything was, there was this serene sort of peace that came over me that everything, it made me sort of value life more
Mhm.
because there is nothing that comes afterwards. It's only what we have here. And you really have to cherish and embrace that. So it made me for a bit, for a short time, it made me feel more alive. But the depression returned relatively quickly. It was still there. And now it was depression plus there was nothingness, no one to talk to.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was really, really hard. So then I end up having a bit of a health scare, just a short thing, something small, nothing major. It was a panic attack. I was at therapy actually, and in the middle of the therapy session, I had a panic attack, and they called the paramedics and they took me to the hospital, and everything checked out fine. But there was something in that moment that I got the impression that I needed to start saying yes to things. And I get home, and within a couple of days, I asked my daughter if she wanted to get her confirmation still. Just a, simple question. Didn't really matter to me, but I knew that it had been important to her. And she was like, yeah, absolutely. Because we couldn't do it because of COVID. So we missed out for her confirmation, and she still wanted to do it. So my father-in-law, who we live with, he's very involved with the church. He's in the choir. So we told him about how Haley wants to get her confirmation. And he said to me, you should do it too. And immediately I was that say yes to things came up again. And I was like, okay.
Wow.
And it wasn't like this, there wasn't some big moment that had this calling for me to become a Catholic again or pursue Catholicism again. But I somehow just went along with it. And I started to take my daughter to mass before she would go to work. And the choir director recognized me because of my father-in-law and invited me to try out for the choir. And once again, there was that
Good.
impulse to say yes.
Wow.
So I said yes, and I joined the choir. So now I was going to church twice on Sundays, once to bring my daughter, and then again for the noon mass to sing in the choir. And all of a sudden, I mean, just whether or not I believed in what I was doing as I was going through the motions, my depression was gone, or at least drastically reduced. And I was feeling this incredible joy. It was like just this wonderful community and all these wonderful people. And through my youth, my teens and my 20s and my 30s, I had held on to a lot of antagonism regarding the church, not to get political or anything, but just that I just felt like there were certain things that the church had done in its past throughout history that made the church bad in some way. And then here I was, and I'm loving all of this that I'm feeling, and I don't want to lose it. And I find that it's not the church that's ever been at issue. It may be individuals, but it's not the foundation itself. And it really, everything was speaking to me about Catholicism specifically being like the first. There's so many branches of Christianity now, but Catholicism is the first. It's the starting point. It really is that central part of everything. and it just makes sense to be Catholic to me.
That's incredible. I think of the branches. I'll just say this, all the branches, when you dig deep into them, lo and behold, there are statements about how they differ from the Catholic Church. But the
Yeah,
Catholic Church, they just say, here we are. Here's the truth that was handed down to the church, and
yeah,
we're moving forward. And it will be that way until the second coming. So I just find that
right.
fascinating. So you're in the choir, you're feeling pretty good about the experience. When did you, I guess, rediscover the love, or maybe I don't know what you would say about your earlier years of love of God, but when did you rediscover, union with your creator? Or did that take some time to develop? And how long ago did you say yes, I should ask, as far as the choir and confirmation
Yeah.
for your daughter?
Um, yeah, so that was this past the last week of September was when I was in the hospital.
Crazy.
And then within like the first week of October, I was saying yes and going to church. And that's why it's like it's so strange because it's like literally in the blink of an eye. I mean, I was an atheist for years. And now I'm a devout Catholic. I go to church multiple times during the week. I make as much time as I can for my church. I just got asked, and tonight was our first night. I joined the liturgy committee for my church. They've asked me to be a lector for the church. It's so incredible and so like deeply moving and touching. And of course, it's not about really my own personal happiness. That's a great byproduct of this. But what it is it's everything for God. It's everything for Him, and how whatever I can do to serve God is like this like new calling in my life, and like I suddenly feel there's just so much purpose to be here for Him and what His needs are, and what I can do for Him to help to show His love, and the love that I have for Him, the love that He has for me, for all of us. Like there's just so much there, and it's so I can't believe that a year ago
Yeah.
I was battling depression like the way that I was.
Unbelievable. So if we can go back to I know it sounds weird, go back to the panic,
Oh, that's okay. Yeah,
that whole situation. How, I'm assuming that was pretty darn intense, and
yeah,
you feel that in the midst of that episode, that's when you felt that to say yes
yeah.
to things, or it was post?
It was so in the moment I was just more caught up in I
Yeah,
can't breathe. There's an elephant on my
yeah.
chest. What's going on? Getting to the hospital, I spent 5 hours, 6 hours at the hospital with my wife, and we were just talking about everything, like all the stress that I had in my life, all the worries and doubts and everything. And it was during that time that I was venting that I just had this little tiny inkling of a thought in the back of my mind that just start saying yes to things. When things come up, people make a suggestion, just say yes to it.
Which
It
is
was so simple.
insane considering you're thinking of the stresses of your life. Most people would, if you were to force the thought into your head, it would have been say no to everything that comes up.
Right, right.
Yeah. Wow. That's really cool. All right. So confirmation, that happened, like you said, just a few months ago.
Yeah,
Your daughter was there with you. Can you talk about
yeah.
that moment at the church and
Oh,
for you two specifically?
sure. I mean, it was so beautiful. It was just the whole church. It starts off, of course, it's the Easter Vigil, so it starts off everything's dark, and we're part of the ceremony because we're getting our confirmation. So we're like pretty much first in line to light candles to start spreading the flame through the church, so that all the pews fill up. Everybody's holding a candle, and it all lights up, and it's so beautiful and so serene. And it's like you feel that presence all around you of of God, of Jesus, the Holy Spirit, of everything. It just everything's interconnected, and everyone's there to celebrate the importance of of God and Jesus and the resurrection and all of that.
Beautiful. Now, do you see after that experience, I ask this of a lot of people, do you feel like you were even more on fire, or did you feel like you were coming off of a high and then you had to kind of figure out, where do I go from here? How do you how was that period?
So honestly, my wife might be a little concerned, maybe just a smidge, that I might be obsessed. It's been like since the beginning with this, and again, just October, but since the beginning of all this, I have just sought out more and more of different like music to listen to and reading the Bible. I'm doing the Bible in a year with Mike Schmitz. Like I'm going through that and like reading other books, reading about the different saints, reading just anything. I'm just becoming voracious about as much information as I can, and it's not dying down. And I don't know if it will. You know, if it levels off after a while. I spoke with a friend of mine. She's very encouraging, and she was saying that sometimes the most devout Catholics are the ones who come to it in adulthood, and I can see that personally. You know that like I didn't have the childhood of going through Catholic school and learning all this stuff. I'm learning about everything right now, and it's like even like I'm reading it and I'm like, why is the Old Testament even included? Like it doesn't make any sense that it's included. And I'm reading through it in this Bible in a Year podcast. And just the other day, it suddenly struck me as like, oh my God, it all makes sense because it
Yeah.
all leads to Jesus. It's all important. If that doesn't happen, we don't get Jesus. So all this stuff has to happen with leaving Egypt and going through the desert and all that stuff. And it's like this epiphany, just like, wow, that's incredible that everything is on this path that like God's playing the long game basically to get
Yes. Yeah,
to
that's
where we are
good.
now. You know,
That's good. Yeah. Yeah. Long game to us, and to him it's,
right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. So what do you attribute that to? Just this grace, when you think about it. You said you were the youngest of eight, right?
Hmm.
And you said you got the short end of the stick in the sense that the religion was kind of waning in during your formative years.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
not that I knew at the time that it was like that. I
sure.
didn't think it was a
No,
big deal,
you're
you
just,
know.
that's
But
all you knew. Yeah.
yeah,
But do you think that that little seed, did you recognize in hindsight the importance of your baptism, even if you didn't know what was going on there?
but not until now. Like not until coming into the church this year did I realize what that really signified. Prior to that, it was honestly like it was a piece of paper that saved me $30 when I got married
Wow.
because I would have had to have paid $30 as a dispensation for the church to allow me to get married in a Catholic church if I didn't have my baptismal record. And that's all it was. It meant nothing to me. I didn't realize what a baptism really means, and now I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, I was so foolish.
Yeah. And I think, Pete, that means a lot of people don't fully understand that until I mean, that was my case as well. I did not understand it. Now, a naysayer would say, well, of course you didn't understand it. You were an infant. The point is, didn't understand the gravity of what is happening, like you were saying, and
Yeah.
the mark that is being placed, the mark that is on the recipient, and what the family is doing, standing in for you. Even if we went through decades of really poor choices, that mark is still there, and you see people coming back to the faith miraculously through great, as the church says, actual grace apart from frequent sacramental reception. It's amazing. And so when I heard your story, I just thought, wow, you get baptized, don't really think about it, and then you have this moment that just leads you right back into the church. And I know for a fact, when you get involved in community, when you've been saying yes in all these instances, you're going to have an impact on people, not just that are coming into the church, that can share, you can share a story with them, but the importance of being in community with those that may be considering leaving. I think it's so
Yeah.
important to be able to share the heartfelt story, the joy. You were very real about that episode with atheism. I think that was really strong to say, hey, all of a sudden I felt, well, I forgot how you worded it, but this joy for a moment, it was fleeting, but
Yeah.
being realistic about, oh, um, I don't have a lot of time on this earth. So for some reason that gave you a little bit of freedom. Um, all that to say, I think there are a lot of people that are looking for reasons to leave, and they need the witnesses of those in the pews to encourage them and to help them understand truly why they're
Yeah.
there. So, yeah, awesome. Chris, is there anything else you want to add about your story or about the Catholic Church or community or anything? I mean, this was really, really special for me.
No, no, I thank you. I appreciate it. This was great for me. There's one thing I feel like uh, compelled to
Yeah,
share.
yeah,
Um, and I don't know if it's necessarily if it's appropriate to share, but in my 30s, so it'll be 10 years in June. I had an experience where I was saved by the Archangel Michael. Um, it was very powerful, and for me, I'll tell you what happened. But the fact that I became an atheist after that is still like I look back like how is that even possible that I can have this major event in my life where I felt I was saved by the Archangel Michael and still turn away from all of it and just be like, no, it was just random coincidence. And what had happened was I was on my way to work. I was running late and I got into my car. And the moment I got into my car, I just knew I was going to fall asleep while I was driving to work and I was going to go off the road
what
and I
the?
was going to die. Yeah, I just knew. And it was a weird sort of like, I wasn't scared. I wasn't afraid of it or anything. I wasn't panicking. I was just, I just knew this is it. And I didn't know what to do with that. So I sat there for like 10 minutes thinking, and I was already running late for work. And I was like, I can't call out, be like, hey, I had a premonition. I won't be in today. So I decided I would just go. And sure enough, while I was driving to work on the road, I started to doze off and started to go off the road. And I would hit the grooves on the right side of the road, and then I hit the grooves on the left side of the road. And I'd snap awake for a few minutes and then start to drift off again. My commute was about 45 minutes, so it was relatively long considering. And the road was just straight and pretty boring. So it happened to me in the past. And then at one point, I start to go off the road and I see this like light in the sky, this like sort of like a ribbon of energy that's like a golden kind of light in like the silhouette of a person. Like I can't see any form, can't see any like shape or like face or anything, but it's just like the outline of a person. And there's these arches of like golden light coming off of it on either side that you could say were looked like wings, but it wasn't like feathers or anything. It was just energy. And I somehow like I feel like I recognize this person, or that I should recognize this person. And I say, who is this? And there's this sound like trumpets in my head. And the name Michael just comes to me. And I just know that it's the Archangel Michael. And then a light shoots out from Michael and into me. And I wake up. I get startled awake. And I grab my steering wheel and I'm hyper focused as I'm driving the rest of the way to work. I get to work. I pull into the parking space and I turn off my car and I pass out. I wake up because my coworkers are calling me, wondering where I am, because now I'm almost an hour late to work. And I remember feeling like drained, of like I was cold, like really cold. And I go into work and I tell my coworkers what had happened. And of course, nobody understands or believes. But I knew for me, I had had this amazing experience, and that my life was saved that day. And that was very reassuring at the time for my own personal faith. Now, 10 years later, I look back on that and I think about what an incredible gift that was. That, I mean, whatever reason it was that I needed to be saved that day, so that I can be here today to maybe just to testify to others about what my experiences are. That's incredible to me. Like, and that how it's like somebody said to me that God, he works in mysterious ways, sure, but he comes to us in the right time, like right in the time that he needs us to be there. He didn't force me to get into Catholicism earlier in my life. It was now in my 40s that all of a sudden I feel like I've come home. And it's really just been so wonderful.
Thanks for sharing that, Chris. That's phenomenal. And once again, the honesty to say, that's exactly how I would have viewed it if I were in your shoes. I would have said, I had an experience like that, and then I end up an atheist and depressed. But yet that is the case for so many people. No matter how beautiful the experience, it doesn't mean that a switch is going to go on in that moment. And a lot
Right.
of us need to be reminded, like this is what I appreciate. I've heard this from several people, to keep a journal of the things that have happened, the beautiful things that have happened, because we forget so quickly. I mean, in your case, I don't think you're going to forget that, but
No, no.
there's so many little things that happen along the way that when negativity starts to creep in and you don't think about all those things. I mean, just read the Bible, how quickly people, you're abandoning us, God. You're abandoning us.
Right. Oh my God.
Have you forgotten us, God? No, actually. If
Right.
you would open your ears and your eyes, you would understand. No, never.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that, because I just got to the point basically of the golden calf.
Yeah.
And it's like such an incredible story, because it's like Moses is not gone that long and they're already
Yeah.
like, we need something to worship.
We need, exactly. Great. Yeah. Anyway, that's a fantastic story. I've never heard anything like that in my life. The fact that you had the premonition is, and you just say, I'm gonna go for it anyway. Let's just go on this
Yeah.
ride and see what happens.
See what happens.
Anyway, well, cool, Chris. Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Thank you for being willing to share everything. These stories are happening all around us, and I try to encourage many people to just open up and share them as often as possible. And even if not on a YouTube show, just with their community, be
Yeah.
ready to give defense of the faith and being ready to share joy. If you have joy in your life, my goodness, can we get some joy out there in the world?
Right. Oh my gosh. If only.
Oh my gosh. Well, Chris, I'll be praying for you and your family. Thank you again. Everyone, please share this video And until next time, take care and God bless.